Welcome to enLIGHTen, where we talk about creative consecration through Christ and we study the art. We study scriptures through art. And I am so excited for today. I hope you're having a wonderful day wherever you are and in your part of the world. It's just so fun. I love our community here so very much. It's literally amazing. I can't wait for Wednesday mornings to get together with you and to learn from you and be with you and feel the Spirit. And so thank you for your light. Thank you for who you are. It's just awesome. It's so awesome to learn together about Jesus and to feel his Spirit and testify of him today, like right now. We have so many wonderful things to talk about. Just quick little housekeeping. We are expecting the desktop calendar. It will be coming. I should mention this at the end because then more people will join. But it's coming. Hopefully, I'm hoping to have it next month. And the Doctrine and Covenants tip-ins are about to be sent out for print. So that's super exciting. Those are for next year. So that's also on its way to get ready for you to be printed. And we are thinking to do a second run on Awake. The response was so great of people wanting it again. So that's going to be fun. That's a little housekeeping. Okay, I'm going to grab my amazing friend, you guys. I can't wait. Randy, we have so many wonderful things to talk about today. And I hope technology is in our favor today. There it is. Hi.
Hello, Ava. How are you?
Good. How are you, Randy? Good morning.
Good. Good morning to you.
Oh, so happy to see you here today. And truly, I can't wait. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
It's just so great. I wanted to introduce you and then you can introduce yourself, but I just wanted to let everyone hear a little bit about you because you're just amazing. First of all, you really are. You're always like such a source of inspiration for our family, always have been. And
thank you for that.
We adore you and your darling family. And we go way back because my husband and Randy's son, Graydon, they're like besties all the way through high school and life. So it's so amazing that our families got connected like that, and it's just such a joy. And most of you would recognize Randy. Randy served in the Young Men General Presidency and 2015, I think that's about.
We were released in about 2015.
But okay, I know that's when he gave
It goes back a ways, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's so amazing. And you're currently serving as a patriarch, so it is so wonderful to have a patriarch teach us today. So I can't wait. This is so fun and so humbling.
Graydon and Adam were certainly kindred spirits when they were growing up. It was fun watching them grow up together.
Yes, they're darling. We just saw Gray. We were in DC, so we went out and we talked together and just hug him. I love hugging him. He's such a bright light. What a darling boy. All of your family. You're amazing. So maybe you can tell people a little bit about you so people get to know you.
Well, yeah. I grew up in a house of 6 siblings, 6 of us total. 2 sisters and 4 brothers. The 4 brothers were all real competitive, of course. We always beating up on each other and playing sports and anything we could do to one up each other. It was always a good time growing up. And I grew up thinking that I never really considered going on a mission, really, because there was no one in my family that served a mission at that point. And I was the oldest of the 4 boys in the family. And I remember growing up and thinking my grandfather was always talking about the end of the world. And I thought, well, the end of the world probably happened before I have to decide to go on a mission or not. Well, it didn't. And it still hasn't. And it was interesting because I, I was going to school, graduated from high school in '69. That ages me a little bit. But I remember we had a draft lottery then, and I was really low on the draft lottery, so I was going to be drafted. So I signed up for the Army Reserve and was trained as an X-ray technician in the Army Reserve. But I went to a year of University of Utah first, and then I went on a year in the Army. And when I got back, I really felt like I was older than a lot of the boys that I graduated with. A lot of them were already on their mission. Some were coming home. And so I felt like I had a pass, basically. And I had a lot of reasons I didn't want to go on a mission. I was real shy, hated to speak in public. My father, I think I inherited a shy gene from my father because he would, if they asked him to say a prayer in the priesthood meeting, he would walk out the back door. He was so shy. And he, for some reason, I looked up to my dad in a lot of ways. He taught us how to work. He was a building contractor, and he taught us all how to work hard. And I admired his integrity, and I admired so many things about him. And so I thought, if my dad was afraid to speak in public, it must be something real scary. So I avoided it like the plague. And when I got back from the Army after spending um, a year in the Army and a year in school, I went to work at Cottonwood Hospital, and I was just ready to sign up for my classes that year. I remember a man came in with a construction worker came in with a foreign object in his hand, and I remember the surgeon operating on him, and I had a tough time finding it. I'd take X-rays, and he'd operate, and he'd look for it. And when we finished, he said, "What are you doing for lunch?" And I said, "Well, nothing." And I went to lunch with him. And it was a surgeon by the name of Dr. James Pingree. And he asked me about how old I was and why I wasn't on a mission. And I told him, well, I think I'm too old, and there's a lot of reasons. I've got a girlfriend, and I've got a scholarship that probably won't wait for me while I'm gone. And I had all these excuses, and he said, that's no excuse. He said, I left on my mission when I was 27 after I finished medical school. And he
Wow.
bore his testimony of how important the mission was to him. And I remember thinking, it really got to me, his testimony. And I remember praying with a lot of fervor that I could find whether or not I should go on a mission. And I was hoping for a yes or no answer. And I just didn't get one. And I was frustrated because I would spend a lot of time praying about it. And I was hoping to get a no answer, but I wasn't getting any answer. And that sometimes frustrating to a lot of us. But James Pingree would call me every once in a while and say, "Hey, how are you doing on your decision?" And he wouldn't let it die.
Mm.
And I remember when I finally came to the conclusion that I didn't want to go on a mission. I had a lot of reasons not to. I was older, a girlfriend, all these other reasons. But I couldn't deny that I knew that the Lord wanted me to go on a mission. So it came to that decisive moment where I was going to do what the Lord wanted me to do or what I wanted to do. And it really set a pattern the rest of my life. I remember I hadn't had a patriarchal blessing at that point in my life. So I remember I thought, I'll go to a state patriarch and get a patriarchal blessing, and that'll tell me whether or not I should go on a mission. And I went, and it didn't say anything about a mission.
Oh.
So um, that kind of set the stage too. But I couldn't deny that the Lord wanted me to go, and so really that decision. And so it was the best decision I ever made, really.
I
Um,
love how you're saying that you had this question, what does the Lord want me to do? And that makes me think of Matthew 6:33, right? Like, seek ye first the kingdom of God and build up its righteousness, and then all these things will be added unto you. It just reminds me of that scripture so much, that like, what does he want us to do? And then he'll help us with all the other things we are thinking about, right? Like all the things that are on our mind and we're worried about, but putting him first. That's like such a good example in your mission and for life, all of our missions, right? Just the idea to remember that I love that line. It's in your talk too, that you say, what does the Lord want me to do? And you say it's so good to ask ourselves that continually in life.
yeah, yeah, and it's hard sometimes because of all the distractions we have. But it's part of living with real intent, the focusing on the purpose of your life is so important. And there's so many distractions that get in our way. It's really sometimes difficult for all of us to focus on what our purpose is. And that's why the question why is so important. Why are we doing what we're doing? And
Yes, 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 yes. Oh, I love it. And I actually forgot to say also that you were mission leaders, you are mission presidents in Ecuador, right?
yes,
So
yes,
that amazing. I can just see you telling your missionaries that story, just like I had to choose for myself and you have chosen. And I think it's so darling that you're able to live that way. And your whole talk is so inspiring. When I put it on my story on Sunday, I had so many people write back and say, oh, I love this talk. It's like changed my life. It literally has. And so I'm just so happy we get to learn from you and all the wonderful things you get to share with us. And from the talk, I mean, honestly, it's like a masterpiece. So many wonderful things in it. And I wanted to bring up the art because we usually like start with this. It's fun. It kind of leads us into the conversation about going and doing the Lord's work. And this is called Destiny Dancing. And it was interesting because this is actually Crane's castle. If you have seen the new Little Women, when Laurie picks her up, this is where he picks her up. It's like 20 minutes from our house, but it's so
that's
beautiful.
beautiful.
So, like, yeah, if you've seen, we actually took Gray there one day, by the way, your son, when he
Oh,
came. And
really?
yes, yes, it's just so neat. But I wanted this idea of a castle, or kingdom ahead. So much I wanted to portray that. And this was like interesting. In Bulgaria, we have a saying which it says "Spitane do cari grazie stiga." So meaning, if you ask, you're gonna find the kingdom. You're gonna find God. You're gonna find where the king lives. It's the literal translation. But I love this because ask and you shall find, right? This whole admonition and just the importance of taking that little step. And I wanted to show her moving, like the dress is like, let's go.
Yeah.
It's that that movement, like let's go. And just the idea of like going a little bit step by step. There's actually two lions right here. Um, I love that the resemblance of, I mean, the Lord, strength, Narnia, I just love
Uh-huh.
the idea of just we go forth and it's really, like you said, real intent and one step at a time. That was kind of the inspiration behind
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like she's starting a journey to, and as we journey through life, um, that's why the Leo Tolstoy story was so impactful for me when I read his story originally. He was 13 when his parents died, and his brothers were wild hares, and they taught him the ways of wine, women, song. And when he was like 21 or 22, he wrote in his journal, "I'm living like a beast. I think he had a venereal disease and all kinds of things at that age. And then in 25, he wrote in his journal, I still haven't accomplished anything, but he says, I'm going to discover the purpose of life. And then in his 82nd year, he wrote, I finally feel like I've discovered the purpose of life. And it lies in two things. The purpose of life and true happiness comes from two ways, and joy. And he said, number one, it's the search for perfection. And we all know that when we're improving, we're happy and we have joy. When we're on that path and we're using the atonement in our lives, it brings a lot of joy and optimism. Exactly. And then the other one, that search for perfection, was number one, and number two is understanding and doing God's will. And that's the purpose of our life. If we can focus on the purpose of our life, it makes everything a little bit clearer. And it's everything we do in the church focuses on the purpose of our life. For example, um, the priesthood is an apprenticeship to become like God. The Lord shares with us His power, and His power is something very important. And you learn at a young age that if you participate and you do the things He wants you to do, you become like Him. For example, a young deacon, he has an opportunity to pass the sacrament. He's participating in the atoning process of each person that he passes the sacrament to. He becomes a little bit more like Christ if he does that with real intent. If he really knows the meaning behind what he's doing, it makes all the difference. If he asks himself, why am I doing what I'm doing? Um, and then he becomes a teacher and he gets a little more authority. And then he becomes a priest and he's able to bless the sacrament. And then he can participate in the ordinance of baptism. And each step along the way, he's becoming more like Christ. And our whole purpose here is to follow Christ's example. And Christ's example is to become like the Father. And everything we do in this church helps us to become like Him. And if we focus on that, it makes all the difference. Why are we doing what we're doing? Our whole intent is to become like our Father in heaven.
Oh, I love that, Randy. And I love so much, someone commented on here, love is the catalyst for change. And oh my gosh, it's so true. In fact, you close your talk with this, which I thought it was so beautiful. You say right here, you said that I testify it is worth it and it makes all the difference. As you do these things, you will discover that the most important why, because you're talking about the why, right? The most important why behind everything you do is that you love the Lord and recognize His great love for you. And it's like, I mean, thinking like, because you love Him, you want to be obedient. Because you love Him, you want to walk with Him and be close to Him. I mean, I just truly love is the catalyst for change and for improvement, and it is our why, right? His love in our lives, and that is just so sweet. Oh, this is one of your missionaries on here commenting this. I love that.
Really?
Oh my
Yeah, that's what we taught the missionaries in the field, because if an investigator can sense the love of Christ through the missionaries, that's the catalyst for them to change. When they see how much the missionaries love them and they can feel that, then people will want to change and they'll improve and they'll grow. And our missionaries were terrific, and we really stressed doing the work with real intent. It was interesting. I had one missionary who was a football player before. Well, I had a number of missionaries who were football players before the mission, and a lot of them were, on scholarship and going to go back to a scholarship when they returned. And one particular missionary came to me and said, President, I can't get enough of a workout in the half an hour they give me in the missionary schedule every morning. I need to work out more than that to stay in shape. And that spurred in me some thoughts about real intent. So I had a Zone conference where we all got together, and I brought a couple of the missionaries up that were in the very, very best condition. And I said, we're going to learn about real intent. And I said, I want you both to get down and do push-ups as fast as you can for as long as you can. And they both got down and they were doing push-ups like crazy.
Oh,
And in 2 minutes, they were gassed out. And then I said, now turn around and do sit-ups for as long as you can. They turned around, they were in a competition with each other to see who could do the most. That lasted another couple of minutes. And then we did jumping jacks for as long as they could do them. And I found that by 5 minutes, they were so tired, they couldn't go on because they were doing it with real intent. And I think real intent is so important in the work. You've got to know why you're there and the reasoning behind it. I did a Zone conference in Italy, and uh, we did a deal on real intent. And I want to read you a little bit about, because I know a lot of your listeners have missionaries. You have Landon that's on his mission, right? And a lot of
yeah.
you have missionaries that are out right now. And I think this missionary really caught the vision. She said, for some reason, this was a huge breakthrough for me. And it helped me resolve the issues that I didn't really even recognize I had a problem with. Here's how I figure it. Most of us spend our days following patterns and habits we've developed through the years, living life, going through the motions at home, online, at work, without much thought to it. Living with real intent means taking our days and tweaking it with focus, modifying it with purpose. Many things we do out of some kind of intent. Some of my missionary routines, for example, are I wash my dishes because I don't want dirty dishes and I don't want a messy kitchen. I say my prayers because I want to have the Spirit with me. I peruse the city streets, trying to find people to build my teaching pool. Repeating these actions every day causes the intent to sort of fade away, which makes me barely aware of them. It's mundane, routine, nothing special. The intent was established long ago, so I don't need to think about it anymore. This puts me in an automatic mode. But what if that changed? What if I established my intentions, the intention for my actions? How would this affect my deeds? How it transform my activities? What if I washed the dishes, but first thought to do it as a service to my roommates to make them happy? Then dishes suddenly become a meaningful task. The only difference is my intention. What if I said my prayers with the intent of opening a dialogue with the divine, of offering my desires for the day and waiting to hear my Heavenly Father's specific guidance? Then prayer becomes a sweet two-way conversation with the Lord. The only difference is intent.
Mm. Wow.
And she says, what if I did my finding after first mentally resolving to use that time to help uplift others along the way to make people happy? The process of finding then transforms into exercise of spreading the joy of Jesus Christ. The only difference is my intention. And you can tweak almost everything you do with intention and putting the purpose behind it. I'd like to talk a little bit about your intention, Eva, because you started this journey. I remember the very first piece of art that I saw was the Stairway to the Stars. And we were so impressed with it, we bought it. And I know your intention is, I don't know, I looked through your book and I love it because it has all these different um, headings. And I don't know whether you created the um, art first and then put your title to it, or your intention was to come up with a title that fits the art? For
I,
example, endowed with power. Turn to your 97. Show us
okay,
that one.
okay. Oh yeah, this was actually Ian on his mission. So I just that was a fun one. It was a fun one to like have him take with him and remember that we have the power of God upon us, that it's the priesthood. And that was just so amazing that we all have that and the strength that it gives us, and just the power of the priesthood in our lives. But sometimes I would create the art and then the writing would come after. Sometimes I had a thought and then I would create the art. So it's just kind of interesting how the Lord works in that sense. That and this was really because everyone, all the people on Instagram, all these darling wonderful people were like, well, you need to make a book of your posts on Instagram with the art. You know, they're like, we want to have a copy of it, so we can read it, like hold it, right? And so this was all these wonderful friends' idea to actually create this book. So that's why it came about. But I had it's interesting because I love when you talk about like the antidote to fear and not knowing what to do in your life is purpose, and working and knowing that you're God's child and finding your purpose in life and finding your why, right? And I love that. And so I had this inspiration years ago, maybe 7 8 years ago, that I should create work for Jesus. And my mission president actually had spoken to me and encouraged me, and I had no idea how. I mean, I had no idea how this is ever going to work out. And so it wasn't, 7 years later or so that I actually, with the Lord's help, just started to act upon that prompting. So I think God is so wonderful that he gives us these promptings, they're inside of our heart. And he's like, you need to do this for me. Like, you have to find a way, whatever that might be. In my case was creating art, but whatever our missions are in life, he would give these promptings to us. It's so amazing. We are entitled to promptings. We can receive them. I mean, what a wonderful gospel we have, that we have Jesus and we can feel his spirit and he can enlighten us and inspire us in our situations. When I first joined a church in Bulgaria, I couldn't believe I could pray because I wasn't a saint. Like, I wasn't like in robes. I wasn't a priest, right? I thought they're the only ones that could pray. And so I was like, wait, I'm nobody. But not only that, but now you have revelation. You have like promptings. You have him literally walking with you. Like, I brought this because I felt I should right before we started. But this idea that we walk with Jesus, and it is just such an incredible journey. And he is with us, just like he was. I'm studying, in addition to my Come Follow Me study, the Old Testament now, but it's just so exciting. He walked with Moses and Abraham and all these incredible patriarchs, right, of the Old Testament, and he still walks with us. It's just so incredible that, yeah. So it's acting upon, like, long answer to your question, but acting upon revelation and inspiration to do something with for God. That it was just so plain out there. It's like, you have to create this, and I didn't know how. I didn't know. But I was grateful for you guys. You were my first customers ever. So
Well,
I was just
you know, that painting is right at the end of a hall, and it's kind of like scriptures in that scriptures mean different things to you at different times in your life. After that meant something different to me when we bought it than it means now. Now, when I walk down the hall and see the picture, do you have that,
trying
by the way?
to find it, so I should know where it is. I'm trying to find it. Oh, there it is. Okay, I'll put it up.
It was kind of the stairway to the stars, and it's kind of reaching for your goals and things like that. Now, after President Nelson's talk on Think Celestial, now every time I walk down the hall, I think celestial, because she's reaching for the stars, which are celestial. Um,
Oh.
And so I think your art means different things to different people at different times in their life as well. And I'm sure that when you create something, like the scriptures say, everything's created spiritually before it's created physically. I'm sure you have a vision of what you'd like to do, and then you tweak it until it fits that spiritual creation that you created in your mind. Is that right? But when we look at it as people, as admirers of your art, it means different things to us based on what experiences we've had in our lives.
Yes. Oh, that's so true. And that's the beauty of art, that you can look at it and it can touch your heart in the way it's meant to be, right? Like it touches your heart the way the Lord wants to reach your soul, and the way that he will speak to you, the message that he wants you to hear, and the spirit he wants you to feel, the prompting that maybe you will receive by even looking at the art, right?
Yes. It's kind of like your own personal scripture. Like we always say, the patriarchal blessings are like someone's own personal scriptures. Um, the words on the page are just a catalyst to inspiration they'll receive. They receive inspiration beyond the words on the page, based on what the Lord wants them to know when they need it, when they need comfort. And so, it's interesting how that goes. And I like your God gazing 131. Would you show that one?
Okay. Oh, okay. Yes.
Tell me what you were thinking when you did that one.
Oh my goodness. I love to look at the stars, and I hope you can see it. Okay, there we go. And I can't not look at the stars and not see God. It's one of those most amazing moments that I just feel him so much. I feel the promise of the Abrahamic covenant, that um, his posterity would be as the stars in the sky. And I love the idea that we find God in the stars. And I think it's interesting because the more we spend time looking for the stars, the more stars we see. And
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those beautiful, when we first moved here where we live in New England, when we used to live in more of a city area, and so there was a lot of light pollution. But when we first moved into our house that we've been here for the last 20 years, there was no light pollution, and it was dark and you could see the stars. And I could not even walk inside our house, because I'm like, I just want to look at the stars. Like they were right there. They were so beautiful. And the more, in those summer nights, the more you look, the more you find. And it was just such a symbolic thing in life. The more you look for Jesus and his light and look up to him, the more light and goodness we find. And the more we see his hands, the more we recognize his hand, the more we get to see his hand over and over and over again. So it was this idea to just feast on God, like look at his beauty around us. And we all see the stars. We don't have to go to this exotic place to see the stars. And maybe if you're in a city, just go outside of the city, right? But it's just amazing. We can all do that. We can all take moments to look at the stars and see how beautiful they are, what he created for us to give us light, and just that symbolism to be God.
See, well, and what it inspired me is I look at it and I see a young man, and his focus is he's focusing on the your title was God gazing, and he's looking for God, and you find what you seek, and he's using a telescope, which magnifies things, and it reminded me of an experience we had in the mission field. We had a visit by Elder Jay Jensen, and during the course of the zone conferences, after we finished our zone conference, we were having a wrap-up meeting with the two assistants at the time. And I remember he asked the question, he said, "Do either of you two missionaries have any questions before I go?" And one of the assistants said, "I do." He said, "I'd like to know how you get to know Christ, not just know of him, but really know him." And Jay Jensen thought for a minute. He says, that's one of the most thought-provoking questions I've ever had from a missionary. And he said, President Ridd, would you answer that? And that really got my mind thinking, where's our focus and where's our intention? If it's to become like God, we have to know God. And to know him, you have to get the telescope out and you have to examine him. You've got to understand what he's written. You've got to understand where he's coming from. And how, you have to understand his love for us before you can really understand him. And, the scripture says to know God is life eternal. And uh, I think that's really true. But to really know him, you have to do what he's asked you to do, keep the commandments. Not just know of him, but you have to do what you have to follow Christ's example and do what he has done. And the only way you can do that is if you examine his life and you know a little bit of his nature. Then you can really begin to become like him. Does that
Wow,
make
so good.
so?
Wow.
So your paintings mean different things to different people in different times in their life, and that was really something that I felt. I really loved that one for that very reason.
That is so neat. And I love that you mentioned like three small and simple things. I thought that was so sweet in your talk because it's practical. So what are some of the small and simple things we can do? And you talked about to do with real intent, right? I thought that was really sweet. And then you said partaking of the sacrament and then prayer and study, which are so little. And sometimes, oh, what if I don't just pray, or what if I don't just read my scriptures today, right? Like you said that they are little but they're important, and sometimes because they're so little we don't see an immediate reward or an immediate change right after. You're kind of could be putting them on the back burner, but those are the primary answers, right? Read your scriptures,
Yeah.
pray. It just
They're the small and simple things that are easy to do, but they're so easy not to do. But
yes.
over time, and that's why the example I gave of the two trees that I planted in my yard. Before we went to Ecuador, we had planted two trees. They were the exact same species. One was on one side of the house and the other one was on the other side of the house. And one got full sun all day long. The other one got just partial sun. And after a year, there was really not much change in them. But when we got back from the mission, there was a huge difference just by having a little bit more sun each day. And how can we have that sun in our lives? It's by reading the scriptures and thinking the good, real intent thoughts on Christ. And that's how we grow, just little by little. And, you can see it in our church leaders. I mean, President Nelson, it's obvious he's had over 100 years of doing the small and simple things really, really well.
Yes. Oh, that is so true. And I'd be curious to see if people wanted to comment on here. It'd be fun to see what are some of your small and little things that bring you closer to Jesus that you do with that. We'll just open that up in the comments because it's fun. It's just fun to see what works for us. I remember talking about reading the scriptures. Our son, Ian, this was years ago, maybe like he was just a teenager. So about 10 years ago or so, we were on an airplane and I remember looking at him and he had his big scriptures and he was reading them the entire flight. I think it was like 7 or 8 hours. He didn't have like his screen on. He did not watch one movie. And there I am. I'm just like one movie after the other. And I just like looked at him and I thought, how in the world can he be so like diligent, like reading with real intent? Like it was such an inspiration for me because I was like that. I could never do that. Like I just kept thinking, there's no way I could have like for that long, right? I mean, it's okay for a little bit, and there's nothing wrong with watching a movie on the plane. But I just, I just think it was just incredible to see that real intent. He was studying something. He was really digging deep, and he really wanted to find out about it. So it was it was an interesting thing to see. Now, I mean, I that's my favorite thing to do on the plane, is to read my scriptures, and it's amazing how you can change.
Yes.
And I, but
Yeah. Isn't
things,
that the truth? I
yeah.
I I spent a lot of time growing up in the priest quorum. I remember with my hands like this while the lesson was being going on, and I was thinking about high jumping or track or wrestling or anything I was involved in, but not the lesson. And you go to stake conference and you sit on those hard chairs for 2 hours with your family, and your mind wanders and you're distracted by all kinds of things. And then you suddenly go on your mission and you listen to all the sessions of general conference, and you want more. When it's done, you're just taking notes like crazy and you're just eating it all up. And what's the difference? The difference is real intent. And we've got conference coming up here pretty soon, and that's really special. And I'll share with you something we did in the mission field that I think really helped a lot, because sometimes we aren't intentional on inviting people to our meetings and things like that. We we don't really know what the real intent of conference is. It's directions for the world. It gives the opportunity for the apostles and prophets to do what they're called to do, and that's testify of Jesus Christ. And there's the power in that. And sometimes we forget that President Nelson is the prophet for the whole world. He's speaking to the whole world. He's not just speaking to our members. He's the prophet for the whole world. And we made these cards, and some of you who have missionaries, you might suggest this because it was really effective in our mission. We made these cards that had the ancient prophets on one side. Of course, this is in Spanish, so you can't read it. But
Oh,
it had the names of the prophets on one side: Abraham, Moses, Noah, Enoch, Adam, and it has Jesus Christ and the apostles here in the corner. We'd ask people, especially in Latin America where people were really Catholic, we knew that they understood, the Old Testament a little bit. We would say things like, if you lived in the time of the ancient prophets and apostles, do you think you would have listened to them? Would you wanted to hear what they said? Would you have been a believer? Oh, yes, I would have been a believer. I would have been. And then we would invite them to come to a state or general conference, and we'd say, well, we're going to invite you to hear a living prophet today who has counsel for you.
mm,
And we'd invite them to come to conference, and they'd come, and it was back in third world countries, they transmit the conference to a state center. And of course, all the members come, and it's electricity's in the air. There's a lot of you can just feel the spirit because of the excitement of hear this prophet
mm.
speak. So when investigators come and they see that and they feel that and they listen to the prophet, it really has power. And I think we don't take enough advantage of our general conferences in the mission field. So if there's some of your missionaries, you might pass that along to them, because they could really we were real successful in our mission to invite people to come to general conference.
Oh, I love that. That's such a good idea. It's so fun. Like, now that we have the technology that you can always share, like, it's so great. It's really an incredible way to send a link, and then you can hear the prophet on the earth. I mean, and the apostles. It's just so amazing that we live in this day and age that it can be streamed worldwide. Their words can be heard. And oh, truly, it's like such an incredible blessing. And I just wanted to talk a little bit more about the little steps that matter, like how, like, it's these little things we do every day that in the long run have such a big important effect on our lives. It could be for good or for bad, right?
Yes.
I have a little bad habit. I love to chew ice, and I need to stop doing that. So I know when, like, one day I'm gonna be like, "Why are you chewing ice?" But anyway, I'm working on not chewing ice when I drink my water. But I like, this is such a wonderful quote that you said, and I'm gonna put that in the sparks for everyone after I send those out. But I loved it so much. I thought it was great. You said, don't be discouraged by thoughts of what you have already done or have not done. Let the Savior wipe the slate clean. Remember that the Lord has said, as oft as they repented and sought forgiveness with real intent, they were forgiven. And I love that whatever parts of life we may be, that we can start now. Like that
Yeah.
we can turn to Jesus, and we can get on that road to him. And I love the repentance when we mess up and make mistakes, that he's always there for us to come back to and welcomes us with open arms. And just the idea that, and you said that, start now, live a purposeful life. And what an amazing like admonition that is for our day and age. And do it with that real intent. Like when you go to sacrament, I love that you gave that example too, that it's just not just another sacrament. This is the Lord's sacrament, right? I mean, this is such the most sacred meeting this entire week, right? Like, just it's so beautiful when we treat it like that. Just small, every Sunday we go, we strive to be there for him and find Jesus there, and in our prayers and in our study. It's just so beautiful doing it with real intent. It just changes everything when you think, well, why am I doing this? Because I love Jesus,
Yeah.
right? I love him. I want to have him in my life. And I know that by doing so, I will feel more of his love. And it's just so, so beautiful. I just found this. Oh my goodness. I have to show you this real quick because I thought it was a little example of small and simple things. In this case, these are words. This is from like 35 years ago. One of my little treasures I have when I was learning English. Of course, it's all backwards for you. So,
Yeah.
you know, you can
It's so,
you can like really see it, but it's all Cyrillic. Look, so it's Bulgarian and all the English words. I have John the Baptist, I have remnant, all these like church words here because I didn't know any of them. The missionaries were teaching me. But I just think it's so amazing. Just that's it, just little word for word. I mean, how incredible that is, that every little step matters.
isn't
It's
it
like, oh,
amazing how where you've come from and what you've done because of the small and simple things you've done each day? And you look back at that now and you think, boy, I really struggled for a while, but the small and simple things, and they build up and you suddenly you become something that you didn't expect.
I'm still messing up and I'm still learning lots of English language new words. My husband's like, wait, that's not a word. But it's amazing how you you can I can communicate. I can read a book, things that I thought, oh my gosh, it's like, how in the world? I mean, little by little, right? It's just like word by word. It's just so amazing. Just every little bit of effort like helps, and that kind of goes back with that artwork too. That anyway, I lost it now. I don't know where that page was, but the idea that it really matters, and it's when it's done with God, that changes everything. I feel like that, and the real intent that we put into it. And this is one of the books in Bulgarian. It's the Narnia, but this is what Bulgarian actually looks like. I wanted to show you this because it's, and again, this would be
Oh
backwards,
boy.
but what I was reading. This is like the Bulgarian language. It's very different. It's Cyrillic based.
Were
So,
you reading that when you were a young girl in Bulgaria?
well, that actually wasn't translated when I was in Bulgaria because I grew up under communism. So they didn't have any books that are, this is Narnia, this is C.S. Lewis. So my parents, when they came to America, they brought all these for the grandkids. So I can read this to my kids, which I have done. But I read it now, and because I read it to my kids, but I never actually read Narnia growing up because we never had these stories. No one translated them
I
for
was
us.
thinking that maybe Adam was reading it at the same time you did because I know Graydon and Adam read all those books.
Yeah, oh, they're amazing with their language abilities. Holy cow. I mean, I can't even, they're just geniuses walking on the earth. But we can do, like, with God, like these things that we feel like are so hard and so big out there, with him they're possible. And I love, you were quoting Tad Callister, I love Tad's quote. Let me just find it real quick. Because it was so much about, actually I wrote it right here in my book, so I'm just going to read it from my book because I can't find it in your actual talk, but I wrote in my book. Okay, this is what he said. Why is it so critical to have a correct vision of this divine destiny of godliness, of which the scriptures and other witnesses so clearly testify? And I think this is such an important question that he's asking, right? And then he said, because with increased vision comes increased motivation. I thought,
Yeah.
so beautiful.
Yeah. You know, the distractions in life distract from our focus. And you know, I did the focus test on my talk, and I think that's so good because there were a lot of things in that focus test that people didn't notice, and you don't find them unless you're looking for them. You know, it goes back to seek and you shall find. But we lose our focus an awful lot in this life because of distractions. One of your paintings reminded me of that, which is 95, number 95 in your book.
This is fun. This is so fun. We get to talk about all different ones. Okay.
So I don't know what you were thinking of that one when you did it, but your title was Head in the Clouds. And I think sometimes clouds get in our way of the vision you were talking about, the true vision, where we have a vision of who we can become, then it increases our motivation. And there are a lot of things that distract us in this life, but if we can focus on the right things at the right times, then it makes all the difference. But the distractions can distract us from those kinds of things. In the focus test, you know, we get distracted from a lot because we are thinking about things of the world. And so it dilutes our ability to really receive inspiration. And we lose a lot of the spiritual promptings that are around us because of distractions that distract our focus. And I think it's so important that we stay focused on the important things. And as we do, the distractions of the world disappear. In other words, the temptations are gone. And if you look back at that focus test, there were a lot of things. There was the moonwalking lady,
Yes.
old lady. There was the ninja that came in. One of the basketballs changed to a football while they were passing it. And as long as people were focused on counting the passes, they didn't see any of that. But as soon as I had them focus on finding the ninja, they found the ninja, and then they couldn't count the passes. And we also put a person in there that the one team put hats on, the team in black during the time, and you didn't notice that
Yeah.
if you didn't focus on it. So we put a lot of things in there that you would probably distract you, or you could take your focus from what you were trying to do,
Mm-hmm.
which was counting the passes. And there were a lot of people that counted the passes correctly, but they didn't see anything else. And that's the same thing in life. If you focus on the right things, you won't see the mud. You won't see the bad things in life.
Mm. Oh, beautiful. It makes me think maybe we should write our own like purpose, so we have it like our mission statement, right? That's my purpose. This is my why. And I'm going to protect this. I'm going to stay focused. I'm going to strive, to center my activities throughout the day on the Savior. And I think it's just such an amazing way to view life through that lens, right? I love that you said to stay focused. That's how you keep your purpose alive. That is so brilliant. Remembering your focus. And I mean, that changes everything too. And I love when the missionaries were teaching me all those years ago, they said, that whole Moroni challenge is with real intent.
Yeah,
Like the verse itself. Moroni,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh,
Isn't
wow.
that true? How many times in the Book of Mormon does it talk about real intent? So many times. I mean, let me see. I think I counted a few of them. How about, well, there's Moroni 10:4 that you were just saying. And if a missionary can get a person to read the Book of Mormon with the real intent of finding out if it's true or not, and if it fulfills its purpose of testifying of Jesus Christ, they're going to find that the book is true. If they're just reading it because the missionary said to read it, a lot of times they don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're reading it with the right purpose, with the real intent, after all, the Book of Mormon was written for the convincing of the Jew and the Gentile that Jesus is the Christ, the eternal God, manifesting himself to all nations. So that's the real intent of the book. And then throughout the book, it says, the real intent of if you read it with real intent and sincere heart, he'll manifest the truth of it unto you. And then in Moroni 7:6-9, it says, Behold, God saith unto man, being evil, cannot give a gift which it is good, for if he offered a gift or prayeth unto God, except he do it with real intent, it profiteth him nothing.
Mm.
So if a missionary is on a mission, for example, and he's just there because he's peer pressure, whatever, and he's just marking time, just going through the motions, he never really gets the focus and he never gets the joy of a mission. He comes back just the same way he left. But if they can focus on the real intent of doing the Lord's work the way he wants them to do it, then they come back with you see them come back, they just have such light and such power and
Yeah.
such it influences every day the rest of their lives.
Oh my gosh. And in all of our missions in life too. It's so true. It's like literally doing it with real intent. I love that you quoted Mark 4:20. It's one of my favorite scriptures where the seed falls into the good ground, which I think it's so beautiful that you shared that. And it says, and there which are sown on good ground, such as hear the word. I love this. So us that hear the word and then we receive it. And then the result is bringing forth fruit, some 30-fold. So I looked up fold, and that means times 10, right? I'm sure you knew that, but I didn't. So I was like, what is 30-fold? So I looked it up. Okay, it's like times 10. So like 30 times 10. But anyway, and it's so cute that like it says some 30-fold, some 60, and then some 100. And this one scholar was saying that the greatest possible return on any particular sown seed is 100. And that's how abundant God can bless us by trying, by those step-by-step deeds, like little by little, that he will continually bless us. It's his promise that he will be with us, that we can do his work, that he will empower us and magnify our efforts. And it's just so incredible to me that those steps that we take are never alone, right? That we're always with him. And
Yeah.
so I'm
The eternal consequences are mind-boggling of one family that's baptized on a person's mission. It's after generations, it turns into hundreds of thousands of people.
yes. Oh, thank you. And I know you had that experience from your mission, and 500 people were touched after the one family you taught, which is amazing. That we can never underestimate what God can do. We just, if we're willing, right, he will do the rest. And oh, it's so wonderful to know that if we've touched one soul, we have done his work. And I am just grateful. Thank you for being here today, Randy,
Thank
with
you
us.
for the opportunity,
Oh,
Eva. So good to be with you.
You're wonderful. Thanks for your wisdom and for enlightening our lives. I hope people felt enlightened and inspired to do those small and simple steps with real intent so they may feel Jesus in their heart. It's just so wonderful to talk about him. So thank you again for your time. Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Eva.
Thank you. Have
Bye-bye.
a beautiful day. Bye-bye.